episode 531 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the small crew here this week. Krim is out traveling over in Singapore at the moment, but we have the owner of MTGGoldfish joining us, Richard, back from his trip. How are things, Richard? How was the trip?
Good, Seth. Good. I went to Germany. I did not visit Phil because it turns out Phil lives in the middle of nowhere, and it's very hard to get to Phil. But I got to enjoy good old German bread, which I didn't even know was a thing. They have bad marketing for Germany. German bread is their most popular thing.
I would have never. I think of like France, maybe, or like Italy. I don't think of Germany and bread, but apparently Germany has like
beer,
the best bread.
bratwurst, whatever. But actually, their bread is actually. I mean, the pretzel is a bread, but German bread. Now I understand when Phil comes over. He's like, "Yo, you guys have a sandwich?" He's like, "You guys have a donor?" I'm like, "What?" Now I understand.
Anyway, today we're going to be jumping around a little bit. We got Dragonstorm out, so we're going to be talking about the impact, or in some cases, the lack of impact that the set's having in different formats, the best cards, what's actually working. We got Final Fantasy coming up. We might talk about that a little bit too. So get into that. There's also been some Pioneer news with Mono Red kind of dominating the format, some new promos coming up. So we're just going to be jumping around today and then answering some Fishmail. Before we get to all that, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, and Card Conduit's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. If you ever get tired of the hassles of buy listing, you can skip them with Card Conduit. You can use their curated service where you send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. And if you want to do a bit of work, you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. Either way, you're going to get a detailed report with the results in a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, it's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some Magic, and let's start with, actually, something I forgot to mention, which is Tarkir Dragonstorm Limited. So I haven't done really any drafting yet, but Richard, I know you posted a draft list that you're working on in the group chat. How is a limited format? Like, how's it felt so far?
I'm either the greatest Magic player ever, Seth, or the worst. I think I did seven drafts, okay? I 7x'd 3 times, 6x once, and then
3 the rest.
Yes. 1-3. 1-3.
So Richard either wins the draft or doesn't win a game.
Whatever. I'm like, Jeskai. No one ever plays Jeskai. Why should I try Jeskai? And then I learned very quickly that Jeskai is pretty scuffed if you don't get the good stuff. But I think it's a pretty fun format. The one thing I will say though, I feel so on Arena. For the boomers back there, or people who play paper Magic, when you draft. You only play people in your pod, right? But on Arena, you draft a deck and then you just go into the wild and play random people. This format, you can totally like break your pod by drafting like random garbage and like breaking all the archetypes. So everyone has a broken deck. And then you go into the wild and play people who drafted properly and get like utterly decimated. So I for the first time in a while, I felt the missing pod stuff in Arena a little bit more, but I've been having a lot of fun. I feel the mechanics are pretty fun. Like Mobilize is actually a very fun mechanic. I think it's actually insanely broken. I think Mardu is very, very strong, and all of my winning deck lists have been involved with Mardu. And then Jeskai kind of sucks. Sultai I don't really get, but yeah, it's
what about Abzan? What about my Skirmish Rhino?
Abzan is okay. Abzan is okay. I mean, Skirmish Rhino's fine. There's nothing crazy about it, but I think Mardu is very easy to draft because there's like 3 uncommon bombs that win you the game. So Mardu makes like a bunch of like 1/1 tokens, right? And then there is a Perforos 2-drop, a Blood Artist 4-drop, and a 4-drop Anthem that creates a creature in combat. So if you just get any one of those, all your cards are like insane. So I think and then Mardu just has all the removal as well, like the common sack a creature that's going to die end step anyway to kill something. So I think Mardu is super easy. Teamer is super fun because you make those elephants or rhinos, or like the token thing,
Oh, right, yeah.
And then like they're 2-drop that mana fixes. I forgot what they're called. Like the each color combination has a 2-drop
Oh,
that like lets you
devotees,
fetch a
I think.
land.
Devotees, yeah.
Yeah, and then their abilities like the teamer one's just like a 6 mana create a 5/5, so it's like pretty strong. Whereas the Jeskai one is a little sus. It's like make 2/1/1 birds. So so yeah, I mean,
So
it's a pretty fun format. I've enjoyed it. I have no need to play standard right now, Seth. I'm just grinding my way up to
that's
limited.
I mean, a lot of people seem to be enjoying limited now. It seems like that kind of the way of the future. I'm curious. So, in limited, you said you had like 7 drafts so far. Are you mostly all 3 colors? Like, how often are you monocolored or 5-colored in this format? Or are you pretty much like pick a wedge and get the best cards for that wedge, and that's your plan?
Usually it's best if you pick a wedge. I think monocolored sucks. You can do 2 colors, but I think the cost of adding a 3rd one isn't that hard. And then if you're green, you start getting very greedy and going 4 colors and 5 colors for absolutely no reason. And the list I posted in our Discord was like a 5-color list, which I somehow never got mana screwed, and then like 7-1. But like
Hey.
because like if you're already an Abzan and then like a teamer card comes up and you're like, well, I'm green. There's like a dragon that for 1 mana. The what's the mechanic called? It's not the adventure mechanic, but like the
Oh,
cheap
Omen?
spell mechanic. Omen. You
Omen,
can just
yeah.
fetch any basic, right? So you can
Oh,
color
right.
fix quite easily. And then you also have like the 1 and 2 drop creatures that can mana filter. So it's not that hard to start going 4 or 5 colors. So if you're an Abzan and then you open a Teamer Bomb, you're like, close enough. I
Yeah,
can do it.
we can make
Right?
it work.
Yeah. So 5-color monstrosities are not as bad as you think they'd be, and the format's kind of slow, so you can actually get there quite reasonably as well.
I mean, I like formats like that. Formats where I can like build a 5-color pile are some of my favorite draft formats. So maybe I'm gonna have to try some more drafting because it does sound pretty fun. And I liked original cons draft, and I like
The
3-color formats. So I might
the
have to do some
hybrid mana
drafting.
is really good. I don't know. Like Wizards is always so good at limited. Like there aren't like well, I guess there are tri-lands, but they're not really needed. Like I typically don't draft them. Like usually the dual lands and the evolving wild and stuff like that are good enough. But the hybrid colors, the ones where you can pay either a red or 2 colorless, that basically turns your 3-drop wedge creature into a 4-drop if you don't have the right colors. That's like super key to making limited smooth. So like you can actually play like a ton of those and like reasonably cast everything. So I like it's just really thought out. Like, I don't know. I look at that, I'm like, wow, Wizards is so good at creating games. Then I look at Standard, and I'm like, like, so I don't know, right? Like, they're limited. It's just crazy how everything just works together, and it's really good. Like, best 3-color format in a while. We haven't had a 3-color format in a while, right? But like, it
Yeah.
feels really smooth. Like, you don't really have mana issues, like you do in some other formats.
I'm gonna have to do some drafting because it does sound super fun. It's interesting that you mentioned how well limited is designed, and I feel like we've heard that a lot. Like every once in a while, there's a set that people don't like as much or whatever. There's something that they don't like about it. But it seems like in general, over the last few years, people have really been positive about Wizards' limited design. That makes me think that some of the things I dislike about standard, like maybe it not changing so quickly or the new set's not having enough of an impact, maybe it's all by design. Like maybe maybe this is all intentional. Maybe it's not that Wizards is really bad at this. Maybe this is how they want it. And for me, it's not exactly how I would do it, but maybe it's all intentional. Because I would say in standard, really the set hasn't had a super big impact. Like the impact we've seen on standard, from my perception, is pretty much some of the top decks get a new card. Like you see Sun Pearl Kieran in the self-bounce decks if you're in white now. So we've seen stuff like that. We've seen like Oculus get a bit better because of Curse of Lightbringer is showing up in those decks. So you see these like top tier decks getting a card or two. The one new deck I would say, and definitely the most breakout card from this set, Cori-Steel Cutter, which was a card I figured I was kind of like, okay, I think this card's good. How good is it though? Is this like a sideboard card? This is the new equipment. It's a 2-drop red equipment that when you cast your second spell for the turn, you get to make a prowess monk and equip it to it for free. And it gives the equipped creature +1/+1, trample and haste. This card's ridiculous. And I would say the biggest breakout deck is it prowess or is it aggro in standard? Which I didn't think we'd see anything compete with mice for being as aggressive and like in that same space. And this deck is, I would say it's a little slower than Mice with its nut draw, but it is still incredibly fast, killing you turn 3, turn 4 pretty easily. And it has some upside of being able to go long because you get to play stock ups, you get to play more like cantrips and filtering. So it runs a lot smoother, I think, than Mice, where if you get a bad draw with Mice, it can fall apart pretty quickly because you don't really have card selection or any card advantage. So I think this is an aggro deck, and Cori-Steel Cutter, for me, is like the big card that we've seen from the set. And I think Cori-Steel Cutter, Richard, it's a card that's showing up even outside of Standard, right?
It's going back to Pioneer. I've heard rumblings in Modern, but like barely.
Yeah.
So like, is it Murktide? Is it Prowess decks kind of play Cori-Steel Cutter? And we talked about whether it, is it Bitter Blossom and is Bitter Blossom back? But the key thing about it is it's a Prowess creature, and it gets the equipment and attacks right away. So it's a 2/2 with haste, essentially, right? And then it has Prowess for later turns, but your Bitter Blossom creature is coming in with haste, and it's a 2/2, which is a big, big deal, which is offsetting the fact that you need to cast 2 spells. But in Magic the Gathering Constructed, casting 2 spells per turn is not that difficult, especially if you're a low to the ground aggro deck, right?
Yeah, and they load up on in standard ops and sleight of hands and Ren Resolve. So you got a lot of card draw to make sure you're drawing 2 cards each turn. The other thing is it also gives trample. So not only is it haste and trample, I actually feel like when I first read this card, Bitter Blossom is where my mind went. And I feel like it's actually a pretty bad comparison because the way the cards play on the battlefield are so different. Like Bitter Blossom, kind of grindy and slow. This is actually incredibly aggressive, where it's coming down and making this hasty threat on turn 3 usually, and then on turn 4 it's getting super huge, and you make another hasty threat, and you move the equipment over. It's kind of wild. I kind of think I might be realizing the issues I'm having with aggro design recently. They just put trample on everything now. I think that's the issue with red design.
If you right, Seth, you can't block.
If you can't block, this is another you can't block card. But I was thinking about it. I was like, why is red in these aggro decks so good? If you think of the best red card from the last few sets, you have like Manifold Mouse from Bloomburrow giving trample and giving double strike. You got Monstrous Rage, maybe the best red card in standard, and then you get Cori-Steel Cutter. I think that maybe red having cheap trample is actually like part of what's making red so strong right now, because I think Kibler's argument about not blocking, I felt the same way against Cori-Steel Cutter, where it's just like, yes, I have some bodies, but no, when you add trample and prowess on this, the bodies don't really matter that much, especially once the Monstrous Rage comes down.
It's time for limited tech, Seth. I think it's like a 3-drop red spell, or is it green? It's red, right? And then it does like 3 damage and destroys a non-creature artifact. So if you can actually muster up 3 mana, I think you get 2 for 1 though, but you might be dead by then. But it's kind of funny because that actually is probably designed to deal with this, but it's not as powerful. Is this? So Cori-Steel Cutter was like $2 or something, like $2.50, like a week ago, maybe like 8 days ago. It's currently pushing like $15. How do we feel about this? This is a rare. Why is it so expensive, Seth?
It reminds me very much of Ledger Shredder. Like, I think the story of this card, very similar to Ledger Shredder, where it was initially underestimated, especially for Eternal formats. And now we've seen in the first week or two that the set's been out, when one of these cards from a new standard sets actually starts showing up in Pioneer and in Modern. This one's even shown up on the very fringes of Legacy. Those cards tend to shoot up in price. Toss in like Standard being very playable there as well. So I think that's the story of this card, where really it's just like the breakout Eternal card that we've seen from the set so far, even like arguably more so than Ugin. Ugin was the card I thought was going to really break out and dominate Modern. And Ugin, if you look at Modern lists, yes, it shows up, but even if you look at like the Eldrazi list, the Tron style list, like half of the ones that do well are playing it, and half of the ones that do well are not playing any Ugins at all. So it's still like undecided, I think. Players are still trying to figure out. This card, though, has just immediately taken off, and I think it might actually stick at somewhere near its current price. if it remains good, which is always the question, I think it's benefited from Standard being so focused on enchantments. Like, when I build a Standard deck, I'm thinking, okay, I gotta be able to answer creatures, because like the mice decks, I gotta be able to answer enchantments, because all the hopeless nightmares and self-bound stuff. Artifacts isn't really on my list. Like, yes, you need something in your sideboard for Urbrass Forge or whatever, but it's not like, oh, I gotta main deck this artifact tape. Because of Cori-Steel Cutter, I'm kind of putting, like, a Braids back in my main deck now. I'm kind of like, I need to have a way to deal with artifacts, so I think it's exploited a weakness in Standard in specific, and maybe these older formats too, but it's exploited the weakness of decks just not being as good at dealing with artifacts as they are at dealing with other permanent types. And I wonder if that's going to change. Like, I think we're going to see more Braids, more artifact hate sneak into main decks, and maybe that'll keep Cori-Steel Cutter in check. But yeah, the price is definitely huge. Ledger Shredder, I gotta look it up. What did Ledger, I feel like Ledger Shredder peaked at like $25 maybe. What was the high point of Ledger Shredder? Ledger Shredder started off at nothing, jumped up to, yeah, at its high point it was roughly 25 bucks, ended up falling down over the course of the next year or two, not being that expensive due to metagame shifts. It's like $8 now. I wouldn't be surprised to see Cori-Steel Cutter pop up a little bit more before it comes back down.
Shredder is so much better though, right? It saw play like all the way back, full stop, right? So Shredder has to be the higher ceiling card, right? But
maybe.
right?
I think Ledger Shredder saw more immediate play in older formats. Like,
Yes.
Cori-Steel Cutter does see play in Pioneer and Modern to some extent, but Ledger Shredder went like 4 of, in, I think at the time, the best deck in Arclight Phoenix in some of those formats. So it probably had even higher demand than Cori-Steel Cutter. So yeah, that's a good point. Maybe, what do you think? Is it going to go up more? Or you think this is maybe the ceiling for the card?
I think this is about where it's gonna be. Like, I think Ledger Shredder is a tier above it, right? Because it's also blue. Which is the favorite color of the older formats, and it saw definitely way more modern play. So yeah,
I don't know anymore. Like, if you look at these formats, Richard, Pioneer, best decks mono red, Modern, best deck Boros Energy, Standard, I mean, mono red mice is up there. I think we're living in a new world where red is what blue used to be. Where red right now, like, it's not going to stay like this a year or two from now, but right now I think we're in the red meta in almost every format. At least, maybe not Legacy, but going back to Modern at least.
That's true. What about Commander, though? You can play Ledger Shredder in Commander. What about Cori-Steel Cutter? Do we play this in Commander?
I don't know. I'm actually, it's been so impressive that I'm almost wondering if it's worth trying. My initial impression of the card was, I wouldn't really want Cori-Steel Cutter, but Trample and Haste is like a pretty effective, a combination of abilities in Commander. It's only 2 if you equip it naturally, so it's not like prohibitively expensive to move it onto your Commander or something. I still don't think it's a Commander staple, though. Like, where would you play this? Like, would you put it in a Spellslinger deck? I feel like a 1/1 prowess coming down early, very threatening in a 20 life format like Standard. In Commander, though, I'm not especially worried about the prowess monk, like, actually ending me.
Yeah, it's like the cast 2 spells a turn is it decks could go in, but like, I don't know, this doesn't seem to really do anything. I'd rather just draw a card or just have like uncapped I can't remember the name of the things, but there's the things that just make creatures every time you cast a spell, right? It's not just your
like
spell.
Young Pyromancer type effects, right? Where you just constantly,
but like the ones that like Murmuring Bosk, or I forgot what it's called, but like it makes flyers and
Murmuring
Talrand,
Talrand,
stuff like that, right? Like there's just way better stuff. So I'm going to assume this is like basically unplayable in Commander, which is why I give the edge to Ledger Shredder, because it still does work in Command. Probably does even more work because there's more turns to
everyone's casting spells. Yeah. No, that's true.
That's not to undermine the fact that this was a $2 card like a week ago. So this is the real deal for Standard and Pioneer, at least, right? And then maybe Modern as well. And yeah, we're living in an aggro world now, Seth. People were already complaining about mice, and now we have a nice Steel Cutter to go along with the aggro packages. How are we feeling about Standard and the lack of changes, right? Like, basically this thing came in, I think that's it, right? We're still living in a bounce world, in a monstrous rage world.
I was hoping for more personally, but I'm also someone who wants as many changes as possible in Standard because I play so much Magic. So I know not everyone feels the same way about it, but personally, I was hoping for more of a shakeup, especially after Ether Drift really didn't have a shakeup either. So if you look at the meta today, yes, there are some new cards that show up, like the Sun Pyrokiran showing up in Self Bounce or Terzalite Bringer and some of the red decks or Oculus decks. So there are a few new cards in those top decks, but really the meta is very similar to November, I guess, going back to right after Dustborn released even last fall. So we're going like 6-8 months of really not, from my perception at least, not seeing a lot of evolution in the meta. I know Crim's very different. Crim's not here today. Crim likes to focus on, well, they added a couple new cards to the deck, and to him that feels like innovation. To me, that's never really felt like innovation. I want to see, someone playing Abzan's Skirmish Rhino. I want to see these brand new decks develop, and maybe that's just not a realistic expectation in 3 years standard. The more I think about it, I think all of this is just 3-year standard changes that are like all the stuff that I kind of don't like. I think it just all goes back to that. I think it's all like, normally I'd be thinking, okay, these cards are going to rotate in a few months. Sure, Monstrous Rage is pretty annoying, but it's going to be rotating. I think that's really what has kind of changed all of this. I think a lot of this stuff, if it was still 2-year rotation, wouldn't feel nearly as bad. I don't think like, oh, they didn't ban anything, whatever, that wouldn't be as big of a concern. Like, I don't know. Do you think this is going to work, Richard? Like, it's been a very interesting week because on one hand, I don't really like how Standard is going and the lack of impact of new sets. But then I got this interesting email this week from an LGS owner over in Thailand talking about how the changes, and me and CGB on last week's podcast talked a lot about bannings and Wizards' philosophy of not changing Standard. So it was in response to that podcast, but they talked about how for their community over in Thailand, that these changes have been great for them. And they have a very average or very low minimum wage over there. It's like $10 a day or something. So in some of these other parts of the world, Standard not changing nearly as much has been a huge boon for the game over there, where it's actually allowing people to play more. So I guess I could see both sides of it. It's one of those things where it's hard to know like what the majority wants. I know what I want. I know what Wizards says that they think the community wants, which are not always the same thing. But then I hear other voices from outside saying, this is working out great for us. I don't know. What do you think, Richard? How do you weigh all this stuff?
I think it's working as designed, right? So I think the whole point of a 3-year standard is that you don't have to constantly build new decks, right? And they made a longer rotation, so the thought that they would just ban cards to shake up the metagame goes against that goal, right? So if they're like, like we just had the BNR and they're like, everything looks fine, everyone's like, oh my god, it's not fine, like mice or whatever, right? But if you remove rotation and then just start banning things like every 2 months or something, like you've effectively made a faster rotation, right? So if you think about it through the lens of someone who buys a paper standard deck, plays once a week, how much mice have they really played? You know what I mean? Like, even if you go back 4 months times 4 weeks a month, they've only played 16 weeks of this standard, right? You can hammer that out on Arena in 3 hours, right? So you'll be bored of the format super fast. But if you just play casually, it's fine, right? And I think the goal is to make sure that you can play Commander, 4 out of 5 weeks or something, and on the 6th week or on the 5th week, you go play Standard and your Standard deck still exists, right? And I think it's made for that casual consumption. So this reminds me of the live service game thing where, every 4 weeks they release a patch, right? And then everyone in the online community no-lifes the game for 48 hours, right? They stay up all night, stream 48 hours, finish all the content, and then on the 3rd day, they're like, dead game. There's no content, guys, right? And then they wait 4 more months, and then the new thing comes out. They do the same thing, right? But in reality, you're supposed to just play 30 minutes today, 30 minutes tomorrow, right? So I think
Isn't
for
that
us
weird,
online
though?
people, this doesn't make sense, right? We want to see a fast metagame, and we don't want to see this deck anymore. But I think if you play super casually, it's kind of nice. You can open Arena and you're like, look, my deck still works. I can still get my dailies in. And then I can go to F&M, play the thing. So I think that makes sense. It's just for us who play the game way too much, it sucks, right? Therefore, Seth, I'd say limited. Play limited. It's a new deck every time, and it rotates. It straight up rotates like every set release. You see nothing of the old
we're going to be getting
cards.
more of those. It's going to be rotating every couple of months this year because we get 6 sets in standard. So yeah, you are correct with limited. I don't know. I have two things on that. So one is, isn't it weird? Isn't it weird to do things in a way that makes people want to play your game less? And to me, it's like, why would I run my YouTube channel in a way where I'm like, I want to optimize this around the guy that's going to watch one of my videos every month rather than the guy that's watching my videos every day? Like, shouldn't I try to optimize around that like guy that's watching every one of my videos and making them happy rather than the guy that like watches one of my videos once a month? Like,
we getting on YouTube, Seth? Okay. So,
but like, think about any business selling Coca-Cola. Why, when you want to make your Coke in a way for the guy that's drinking it every day rather than once a month,
to the guy that drinks 10 Cokes a day? Or do they try to advertise on the Super Bowl where someone who doesn't drink Coke at all will drink their first Coke? Right? So in general, even on YouTube, right? What do we talk about? We talk about views, reaching new people, right? That's getting the more casual crowd, right? You're trying to loop in the casual people and hope they turn into the hardcore people, I guess would be, right? So that's the Wizard strategy. And it seems to make sense, right? Like if we just kept it a small community of hardcore people, we'd have like 100 Magic players in the world, and that'd be it, right?
Okay, that is true. That is a good point. Although there is a second part to it, which is, what about the sets not making an impact? And I think this is where we're going to see a crisis at Wizards, where they want to be bringing in new people. And I think a lot of these changes, adding universes beyond a standard, extending rotation, doing less bannings, I see that as specifically for people that they're trying to bring in with Universes Beyond. So they want someone who's, doesn't really play Magic to be able to buy into Final Fantasy and play their Final Fantasy deck for the next year and get addicted to the game. I think that's what they're going for. But for that to work, you got to be able to play with your Final Fantasy cards, right? If Final Fantasy has no impact, you go to a LGS and you just get steamrolled in 05 and everyone was like, oh, why are you playing those cards, you idiot? Like, that's not going to work either, right? You're not going to have that person coming back and like getting addicted to the game. So that's where I'm kind of concerned. And maybe we'll see Final Fantasy be super pushed. Maybe Wizards has this all planned out and they're thinking, we're going to treat it like Modern. And like, sure, we won't rotate as much. There's going to be a lot of sets, but we're going to print these super push sets that like kind of rotate the format on their own, like we've seen with Modern Horizons in Modern. Do you think that's what they're going? Because I don't think you can both have new set. Like, you can't just have Monstrous Red and Esper Self Mounts be the only decks in town for the next year and a half or 2.5 years, whatever it ends up being, January 2027, and have all these Universes Beyond sets that are trying to bring in new players just not be playable, right? So how do you handle that? How does that balance into there?
Yeah, you need to sell your new cards. So here's the secret. Wizards doesn't want you to play your old cards. They pretend they want you to, right? Like they add vintage, but they don't really want you to play vintage, right? Like they just want you to know there's a home for your old cards, but they want you to keep buying new cards. So Wizards has kind of gotten away with it by like making commander cards, making your dragon scale foil fetch lands or whatever. Like there's other non-standard desirables in your standard set. But at the end of the day, they need to make sure you buy the new product, right? Yeah. And it's a balancing act, right? If you keep buying new product, then you feel like this is like an infinite money sink, right? But if you buy no new product, Wizards is like, what are we even doing? So they have to meet in the middle somewhere and like have you buy at a pace that is appropriate, right? And what that means, who knows, right? And like how much money they're like. So somewhere in Wizards headquarters, there's a document that says the average Magic player should spend this much money. I wonder what that number actually is, right? Because they have some goal for us, right? They're like, okay, Seth, I want you to spend $5,000 a year on Magic products, and we'll figure out how to get that. It's like the arena economy, right? They're like, we're going to give you this much gold every month. And then we'll let our marketing team figure out how to slice that up and make you feel good about it. But like that's the bottom goal. So I wonder how much product we're supposed to buy every year, because the price kind of keeps going up, and the number of products keeps going up. So like what is the actual number they're looking at? But Yeah, like they want us to buy Final Fantasy, and it's very clear that they're pushing it towards Commander players. Like they're not expecting standard players to spend more. They're actually trying to make standard players spend less, but then they're pushing that onto Commander players and collectors. So I would expect standard to not be power crept, but I would expect Commander to be power crept with Final Fantasy. That would be my guess as to what they do here. So expect really broken commanders that don't really work in 60 card formats. Like that'd be my guess.
I mean, I think that would probably be my guess too. Although, if that's the plan, I would be like, well, then why all these standard changes? Like, if the goal is to get new players to play their Final Fantasy cards in Commander, why can't we just rotate standard and sell them Commander cards?
I don't know, Seth.
So-
we keep complaining, Seth. What did we complain about before they added this?
Oh, that's I mean, there's always something to complain about. That is probably Modern. I guess Modern Horizons and Modern. There's always something good to complain about. We are Magic players after all, and that is one of our things. And this isn't like, I don't know. I don't want it to sound too doomery. I was just hoping to see, skirmish rhinos and like more of the wedges actually like show up in standard. So that's the disappointment that I'm kind of like working through now, is just seeing those not really take off in a competitive way. Doesn't mean the set's bad. I still love the set. And I think in a way, I don't know how to enforce this, but I imagine this is a really fun standard to play casually. Like if you can play casually with your friends and no one's playing self bounce and no one's playing the mice deck, you have all these cards, you have all these like tier 3 decks that are really cool, but when you play the ladder on Arena or Magic Online, you're very incentivized to like build the best deck, because why wouldn't you? Because all decks cost the same and you're playing on the ladder against everyone else playing those decks. But if you're playing the format like without the top 2 or 3 decks, it's probably a blast. So I imagine people who are playing casually are probably having a ton of fun.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work on Arena or Moto, and I don't know how you can make it work
on your FNM. Right? If your FNM is sweaty, then I think you're in for the meta game. But if everyone's playing tier 2 or tier 3 decks, then I'm guessing it's pretty fun. My guess is it's sweaty. My guess is like Magic players are sweaty. So like One Piece is very interesting. Like even at the top tournaments, people play like tier 2 decks like all the time. Like people, like there's obviously a meta and you're gonna see the meta, but you always see like tier 2 rogue decks just like popping in there and doing stuff. And in 10 rounds, expect like 2 to 3 random rogue decks that are actually doing well. And at locals, which is FNM, like there's a lot more of them. But it's like I don't know what it is. It's like a player mentality kind of thing. So it's gonna depend on your actual FNM, whether people are just like, cool brew, dude, like Monstrous Rage, you're dead. Or they're like, yeah, I'm gonna power down my deck. Like, we're gonna do a bracket 2 FNM or something like that. You know what I mean? Like
bracket 1 standard. Bracket 1 standard. Come on, Watsy.
Like it really depends on how sweaty everyone is. But I think Magic players as a whole have been conditioned to be like super sweaty over the years. But maybe that's changed, Seth. I don't know. Because my LGS FNM standard never fires, so I don't know. But maybe all the Commander players come play standard and then they bring that mentality, right? But if you talk about like old tournament grinders, they're always playing like the best list. And like, it's like the Crim approach, right? The fun card is the one of sideboard card tech that's like for funsies to get you. Yeah. But like the list is like 74 card solid, right? So that's just like how old school Magic players work.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much that shifts, because I think that is like 10, 15 years ago. I think that was like the only way people played Magic, but we've seen like the shift towards Commander and more casual play. I don't think that's necessarily taken over in 60 card formats, because I think if you're playing that way, you're probably still mostly playing Commander, because why deal with Monstrous Rage and self-bounce if you can just like play your 8 drops in Commander if you're playing casually? So, but it is interesting to see that shift in the community. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I really have my eyes on Final Fantasy. Like, I think that's a set. I'm very curious how they're going to handle this. If this is going to be like a power creep set to try to make it have an impact on standard, or like you said, if it's really just mostly going to be Commander focused. And then after that, we do have the summer ban window coming up, which it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out as well. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about Modern, Richard? So we just had the bannings in Modern of getting rid of the best deck, right? The Breach Mox Opal combo deck, Grinding Station combo deck. So we got rid of that deck. There were no other changes in the format. They didn't ban anything else. If you look at the meta today, Boros Energy back at the top of the meta, I would say. Eldrazi is doing pretty well since the bannings, probably the second best deck. And then we have what, Storm and Murktide in there. What do you think of the Modern meta? Like, is Modern fixed now?
I don't know, Seth, and I don't care. It seems
I don't
like we
care.
just undid, like Breach came in and then Breach left, and then here we are again, right?
We're back to where we were before,
yeah,
basically.
and I don't know. So there's a little bit of Ugin in the format. There's a little bit of Cori-Steel Cutter in the format, and then that's it. And I don't know what I even want out of Modern anymore. So, like, I want to play Tarmogoyf, and these things did not help Tarmogoyf. So, like, I don't know, right? Like, we're way past the Tarmogoyf point. So, I don't know that anyone even knows what they want out of Modern anymore, right? Like, you got Splinter Twin, go play Splinter Twin, folks. Like, it's here, right? But so I think people just want to brew. They just want to play around. And they're like, wait, okay, now it's a bit degenerate. I don't want to play anymore. And then they wait for the next BNR. But
they play for a while, and that does kind of seem like that.
But I feel we just undid the last couple of months or weeks or whatever, and we're kind of just back here again. So I don't know. Nothing's really changed, Seth. Am I wrong about that? I haven't been following too closely.
No, I think it does kind of seem like people are trying some new things. We've seen, like, with the bannings, Jeskai Ascendancy is one of the decks people are trying to pick up, the like Mox Opal mantle combo mantle there. We'll see if that actually takes off. But in a lot of ways, it does feel like Modern kind of went back to where it was before the rise of the Underworld Breach decks with the Mox Opal and banning. We do see Cori-Steel Cutter with the Is It Prowess deck making a comeback. As far as other new cards from the set, it's really Ugin, Cori-Steel Cutter, and then Stormscale Scion has been a Storm finisher in some of the Storm decks. We see, like, some of the Ruby Storm decks are playing that as their finisher now over some of the other Storm cards, which is kind of cool. Although Modern's a little different, right? Like, if there's 3 or 4 cards that come out of a set that impact Modern, isn't that, like, kind of traditionally how Magic sets have been for our whole lives? Like, I remember 10 years ago talking about, a new set came out and there's only 2 or 3 Modern cards in it. But isn't that what we expect out of Modern, though? Like, not having that big of a shakeup?
Yeah, because when we do, we complain about Modern Horizons. So yes, this is what we want. And I will say, like, isn't this the ideal format? You want your most popular deck to be a fair mid-range deck, right? Like, if it's anything but that, people complain, right? So if the most popular deck is like a combo deck, like a Breach combo or something, like, people are like, oh my goodness, this format's
or
degenerate.
too aggro,
right?
Or too controlling.
Yeah, so and then if it's like one ring control, everyone's like, oh my god, right? But I like when you have like a Splinter Twin, a Jund, a Boros Energy, like Dimir Murktide, like, isn't this the best case scenario for Modern? You have kind of this fairish mid-rangey deck as the gatekeeper deck, and if you want, you go all in combo to beat it, and then that's it, right? Like that's Modern, right? So I feel this is where Modern wants to be, and then we're just all complaining for the sake of complaining. Like what else? Like what can we possibly be doing here that makes it better?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's mostly true. I think having a fair mid-range deck as the biggest deck in the format is what most people probably want out of their formats. And I think Boros Energy kind of fits that. I think the thing, I don't know. I think a lot of the Modern stuff just comes back to the huge upheaval with Modern Horizons. I think if the Boros Energy, the same deck existed, but it was printed piece by piece through like 2 or 3 years of standard sets, no one would be complaining about it. Like, it is very powerful. So there would probably still be some power level concerns. So I'm not diminishing that, but I think that's where a lot of the angst comes from. Isn't so much like how the deck plays, but how the deck entered the format. Like, maybe that's my perception, at least.
It
like,
feels
if
fake.
these cards. Yeah, it feels kind of fake. They just all came in at once, and now it's the best deck in the format. When if it was a card here, a card there over a couple of years, I don't think anyone would even notice that it was the best deck in the format. And maybe people would be like, well, this is pretty awesome. We're in Modern where there's a kind of a fair mid-range deck is the best deck in the format. So I think it's, and I guess that's kind of contradictory, but that's my guess of why it's such a big deal, is just like how the cards release and so much of a shake up all at once kind of rubs people the wrong way.
I'm looking at Murktide. It's all new cards anyway, so I'm like, yeah. I mean, the whole format's all new cards. I don't know. Is it just Tron?
Okay.
Like, Tron is like full of old lands. Like, that's what we got.
Bear with me, Richard. Standard Horizons. We have this 3-year standard now. It doesn't rotate very often. We don't ban the. How do we need standard horizons? Maybe we need standard horizons to keep standard fresh.
That's the logical conclusion based on Modern Horizons, Seth. There's a problem. Like you nailed the problem, right? Like you need to buy new cards, and if you're buying them for standard, they have to be of sufficient power level to like outdo 3 years of old cards. And the only way to do that is standard horizons. But my hope is they're like, we'll just let standard do whatever, and we'll use like chase foil treatments, we'll use IP and other things to sell the product. But
Yeah.
it might actually just be standard horizons. But like I don't know, like if standard so Final Fantasy releases, and then you play Final Fantasy for 3 years. Is that really any better? Right? Like now
No.
instead of Monstrous Rage, it's Cloud's Rage or something. I don't know, whatever it is, right? And then you're like, oh my god, like I thought Final Fantasy is over. Get this out of here, right? I want my Captain America cards to work or something. Whatever the new Universes Beyond is, right? My SpongeBob cards. Like it's just the same cycle over and over again, right?
Yeah, no, it is. It is kind of the same cycle, and I guess it would be the same issues, whether it was Final Fantasy or something else. What if they put Tarmogoyf in standard, Richard? Would that get you back into standard? Would Tarmogoyf even be good in standard? It would probably be unplayable, right?
Like actual Tarmogoyf,
Like
like,
literal Tarmogoyf, just straight
wasn't
up.
even good back in the day in standard. Like, I'm not even sure. Like, I don't know, man. Like a 2-mana, let's say they just printed a 2-mana 4/5, no conditions. Is that playable? It's probably playable. It's probably pretty good. But I don't know. The problem, standard gameplay is just not fun, Seth. Like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know that it's a specific card or deck. It's just like, there's a meta. It's very narrow. You play on curve. You either win or lose the die roll, and then you have a sideboard for your opponent or you don't. So I don't find standard as appealing. I feel all the other formats have a point, right? Like limited is like true, like free for all, and you get access to the whole card pool. In modern, you get more power, and then you get more plays every turn, right? Since your mana value is lower, you actually have choices of which cards to play on curve, and then your sideboard options are much more impactful. And then you have Legacy and Vintage, which is like full hard mode. So like I don't know that there's a point for standard anymore because you just play Commander if you want to play like casually. So I don't know. Maybe standard's time is just gone. Like, what is the point of standard? It's just to play arena, right? Just to get your goal.
I mean,
to play more. Play more standard.
To play more standard on arena. I think that's part of it too, is like the arena thing makes it a little more challenging because people just can't jam so many games on there, and what's good for like an arena standard player isn't necessarily what's good for a paper standard player. Yeah, and that's another thing that's just seems very, very challenging to actually balance. If you want an old school complaint, that's what we complained about before, and I actually think, and I'm gonna get so yelled at for this, but you know what our problems really go back to, Richard?
What
the
is it?
London Mulligan rule. It's the London. They get to mulligan to find they're up the beanstalk. They get to mulligan to find. If it wasn't for the London Mulligan rule, I'm telling you, kids, Everett standard would be a utopia.
Is it really?
I actually don't think standard would be a utopia, but I think it does contribute to things feeling so samey because you can mulligan into those same cards, your best cards very consistently. So I think it does. If you're someone who plays a ton of Magic, I think it layers on top of the slower changes to make it feel even more samey. Because not only does the meta not change as much, but the individual gameplay doesn't change as much because you can easily mulligan to 6 to try to find the up the beanstalk or 5 to find the up the beanstalk. So I think as for someone who plays a ton of Magic, I think it layers on top of
what was it
on
before?
Top of other changes.
You would draw 6 and then scry.
Like you get to scry for each time you mulligan. Yeah, you mulligan 7, 6, 5, 4, and then scry equal to the amount of time.
How many years has London Mulligan been around?
Cool. I want to say 2018. It's been a minute. That's an old school complaint.
I don't even remember how the game played before that. Now it's been that long. You're still.
I know it is honestly like damage on the stack to most people. Most people have never lived with any other mulligan rule. Like bring back damage on the stack. Oh, all right.
I don't know. No. It can't be the mulligan. I feel the mulligan rule like ruined modern. I think you have a real argument for the older formats, right? Because they're very dependent on sideboard cards, and that mulligan lets you find it, and then it becomes like sideboard fest. and then Degenerate Combo Fest. I feel in Standard, I don't think it really matters. I feel it really helps Limited. Like, you know, your
I would
Limited games
agree
are
with
very
that.
smooth.
Limited,
So
I
by
think, is way
extension, it should
better.
help Standard too. Because Standard is not about degenerate combos, although it's up the beanstalk into a curve out a degenerate combo. Maybe it is. Maybe
Monstrous
it is.
Rage with a double strike mouse. Like, a lot of decks kind of are combo decks in a weird, or they feel like combo decks sometimes, even though I don't think they technically would meet the criteria. They play kind of combo-y.
Well, Seth, you just how about you just play all your games using the old mulligan rule?
Yeah,
You always pitch the first card on, like, on the right,
rule.
but never back, right? When you mulligan.
I'm just not gonna, I won't play these cards. I'll just hold the extra ones in hand and not play them. Keep it fair. Okay, switching topics. I got a finance question for you, Richard, because someone asked me this week, and I wasn't sure how to answer. So if you look at the new set, Cori-Steel Cutter, obviously the big winner, up 300% this week to $15. Not much really gained. You see, like, Elspeth ticked up a little bit, a random under $1 dragon ticked up a little bit, but most cards from this set are dropping. Mox Jasper down to $25, Call the Spirit Dragon down to $8, Dracogenesis down to 21. The question, though, is Ugin Eye of the Storms. I had someone message me yesterday and was like, I want to buy Ugin Eye of the Storms. Should I buy it now, or should I keep waiting? Is this card going to be good in Standard? Is it going to be good in other formats? So right now, Ugin is $60 retail. You can probably find them for around $50 if you scrape around and look at different places, but somewhere in that range. What do you think the future holds for Ugin? Like, if you want Ugins, would you be buying now, or would you be waiting and hoping it drops a little bit more?
What are we doing with Seth
say-
Ugins?
I will say my initial impression of Ugin is it is not great in Standard. It is. I was hoping it was going to be really good. It's felt pretty fringe to me. Maybe there's like some weird deck that could make it work, but I don't think it's going to be a Standard staple. Modern, maybe.
So the way it usually works is when a new card is released, if it's a fair looking card, okay, like, you know, like a Tarmogoyf type card, its peak play is at the beginning. So whatever you see today is like the most. Everyone's jamming it today and trying to make it work. And it like barely shows up in Modern, right? Like it's like there, but like it's not like it's dominant or anything, right? And then usually, if it's actually like a legitimately good card, it'll still fall off over time because people aren't forcing it as the new shiny, and also the rest of the meta game will adjust and, like, you know, deal with it. So given that it's Standard unplayable and it sees like almost no Modern play, I would say it's like nowhere but down from here. That would be my not financial advice. So I would wait. Now the caveat is if you're like, I want to play it in Standard, then I'm like, well, you're gonna wait and then never play it, right? Like if you want it for Standard, then you kind of just gotta get it to play Standard. But it doesn't seem to be that good. Like this is like kind of like peak play. Like I can't see like Tron players like, oh yes, I was just missing this one card and now my deck is insane, right? I think they figured it out, right? So unless it's something like Lion's Eye Diamond, where it's just so weird that it takes a while to develop into a thing, like I think you've seen what Ugin does in Modern already, and it's like okay. So it should go down.
Yeah, that would be my guess. My not financial advice is I would hold off a little bit. Normally, like, it takes at least a month for cards to really lose all their value, so I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I'm not expecting Ugin to be a $5 card or a $10 card. I think it's better than that, but $50, $60, I wouldn't be surprised if it went down more, at least over the short term. The thing I missed about Ugin that has made it way worse than I expected is it can never really kill your opponent. Compared to previous Ugins, like Ugin the Spirit Dragon, like you use it, you wrath the board, you take over the game, but then it can just like bolt your opponent's face. If nothing else is going on, you just bolt them and bolt them and bolt them until you win. Even the 6-mana Ugin, it makes the weird manifest things. It can attack. This Ugin, I guess the ultimate, theoretically, like you can cast all your colorless stuff, but outside of the ultimate, it doesn't ever really damage your opponent. It messes with their board, it draws cards, it makes mana. So I've run into it in Standard, like I play against a control deck or someone who's not really playing to the board, the Omniscience Reanimator deck, and I'm like, what do I do with this? I cast it and blow something up, which is nice, and then I guess I draw a card, but it doesn't ever really get you dead in any way, which I found to be really make it much more matchup dependent than I thought. Like if your opponent's just playing big stuff to the board, just exiling their stuff is great. But if your opponent's not doing that, Ugin, I actually just like sided out in a lot of the matchups and just doesn't actually do anything.
that makes sense. So if you're actually a colorless deck, then the ultimate wins the game. But if you're just jamming this as top end somewhere, like Karn Liberated or something, back in the day, right? Like as a control piece, and that ultimate searches out other Ugins and that's it, then I can see where you're coming from, right?
Yeah, there's no
This
finish
sounds like
to
a crypt
this.
problem, though, right? So let me get this straight. Every turn, you have this Planeswalker removing, you're drawing extra cards, you're removing the board, and you still can't close out the game with the rest of your deck? Like, what? Like, you're drawing extra cards, so you should be able to get it done.
Yeah, it might be that my deck was very focused on ramping into Ugin, so it was just
You
drawing
need
me more
creature
ramp
lands or
spells,
something,
so maybe,
right? But
yeah, maybe
theoretically, if
it
you're
was
like,
the deck
every turn
building
I draw an
issue.
extra card, remove your stuff, you should be able to win without the ultimate. You should be able to win without the ultimate.
I mean, I do love Phyrexian Arena, and even 7 mana, drawing that extra, you gain some life, that helps make up for it.
Oh, you gain life too. Oh,
You do gain some life, which is, if you're alive at that point, which is nice.
we
Oh,
need the
Richard,
footage of you like Ugining for like 10 turns and losing the game because you have no win con.
I think I have a video of that somewhere that I was never going to release, but now I might have to. I don't know if you saw this, Richard. We're going to do some Fishmail in a minute. They announced some new Final Fantasy Buy-a-Box promos only for Japan. Japan gets all the cool stuff. But there are Buy-a-Box promos over in Japan, Force of Negation and Arcane Denial with Final Fantasy art. What do you think of those as a Final Fantasy player, Richard? Are these going to end up in your commander decks? Do you like these versions? Yeah.
I don't like Force of Negation. I played Wart, but Arcane Denial's playable.
Arcane Denial's not bad.
But even then, like, I cut it most of the time. So I don't like, okay, if these were $1, yeah, have at them. But these are not going to be $1, so I will probably not be getting them. The art doesn't particularly sing out to me, so I'm like, I am curious though, why Japan exclusive? Is it confirmed Japan exclusive, or they just spoiled them in Japanese and we're like, I don't know, sure, right? But do we know we're not getting them for certain?
So they classified them as like Japanese promos or something. So it sounded like it was Japan only, but I haven't read the entire announcement. I just saw the thing that they tweeted about it, where it said they're new promos for Japan or whatever. So I guess I'm not 100%. My assumption is that they are for Japan only. Also notable on these, apparently the way they're doing it is almost everyone gets Arcane Denial, and then there's 2,000 copies of the Force of Negation that will go out as box toppers. So the Arcane Denial probably going to actually be pretty inexpensive because 99 out of every 100 people are going to get the Arcane Denial. I gotta say, I actually find that a little, like, I guess it's good that we know it, and I guess that makes it a little less feel bad, but it does feel kind of bad, doesn't it, to have, like, the super rare Buy-a-Box promo versus the super common Buy-a-Box promo? It's kind of like those secret lair cards where one lucky person gets the $5,000 whatever Miku Snapcaster, and everyone else gets the $2 the $2 throwaway promo. So it does kind of lead to some feel bads.
I kind of hate it. These are Buy-a-Box, right? So so if you buy like a play booster, you get it.
Yep.
Yeah, I wish they just put them in normal booster packs at like the same rate, like just so that when you open a booster pack, you can get it. But I can see that, and this is not the first time they'd have Japanese exclusive. They have like those anime tokens. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but like there's like a monk token or something.
Oh yeah,
that's like anime art is Japanese only. And I'm like, why? Like, why didn't they ever release them here? Why is the monk token so expensive, right? So it would not shock me that these would be Japanese exclusive, but that would mean we have different Buy-a-Box promos then, right?
That would be my guess, as we will also have some that are different. I think it's just that TCGs are super big in Japan, and unlike over here where Magic is one of the biggest TCGs, if you look at the numbers on TCGs, Magic, it seems like it's just another popular TCG. It's like in the top 10, but like there's a lot of popular TCGs. So I feel like Wizards feels like it's worth fighting for the Japanese market because it's so popular there, and they don't already dominate it the way they do over here.
But this is not a good fight. you remember like the Liliana promos and stuff that they released in Japan? Like, that's a good fight. This is like, okay. But Force of Negation, do people play that in Commander, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's
playable.
I don't know if it's like a huge staple, but it is playable and definitely a Modern, I would say, staple. At least it used to be. People still play Force and Negation Modern. And
to me, it's a modern card in my mind, but it's probably playable enough. I mean, are you really going to play this? Like, how expensive is this card going to be, though?
No Pact Negation, but it's all right.
If it was Pact Negation,
Richard would be all about. He'd be flying to Japan,
right? Because it's super bling, and then everyone thinks it's trash. So like, it'll be cheap, right? You know what I mean? Like if they put like a Force of Will, like the multiplier of Force of Will is like insane, right? But if it's like thwart, people are like, what is this garbage? Why did they do this? It's like Comet Storm in Modern Horizons, right? I'm like, oh yes, eat it up.
Oh, anyway, those are the new promos. If you're in Japan, I think you should get one just for getting a box. Everyone else, I guess you can get them on the secondary market. But anyway, I think those are all of our big topics. But we got a fish mail or two. Richard, why don't you fish mail us?
All right, if you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. All right, I got a good one for you, Seth. Ocvision 3000. Why aren't people that want quicker changes in Standard playing Alchemy? It has the old 2-year rotation and gets new cards more frequently thanks to Alchemy cards. I personally enjoy 3-year Standard myself. By the way, have they fixed Monstrous Rage or Up the Beanstalk or any of that in Alchemy?
So some of the stuff's already rotated, like Xur's already rotated, so there's not really the same level of domains. They banned Monstrous Rage in Alchemy like months ago, so there's no Monstrous Rage.
This sounds like it. This is fixed Standard, Seth.
It is. Oh, man. But then you got to deal with all the other baggage that comes along of digital-only cards and rebalance cards. Should I try it?
But you're a digital-only player. When's the last time you played Paper Standard, Seth?
Oh, man. Do I have to try Alchemy? Is this... Oh, man. Was this all their plan? You know what? Maybe this was all a plan to get me to play Alchemy, Richard. Wizards is playing the long con here. We'll change rotation. We won't ban anything. We're going to get Seth to play Alchemy one way or another.
Non-ironically, without making a joke, right? Alchemy is designed for people that like no life arena. You know what I mean? It's like faster rotation, brand new cards coming in every set, and then also like instantaneous balance fixes, right? Like they patch the cards, and you don't complain that your card is like banned and no longer playable, and get wild card refunds, blah blah blah, right? They just like change it for you, right? So like, we're supposed to be playing Alchemy, right? Like if you play like 20 hours arena each week, Alchemy is what you're supposed to be playing because it moves at the same speed as you. It just sucks for whatever reason, right? And I don't. Is it because we're giving it a bad rap? Has anyone actually played Alchemy in the last year? Is it still bad?
I have it. Maybe I actually should. I know I played it some when they first announced it, and then it really just did not take off, and a lot of people did not like watching Alchemy videos because it was pretty controversial at the time. I know Wizards posted some data. Our editor needed to put it in the chat, the group chat. It was from last week's WotC stream where they did an arena stream. It's still not even very popular by Wizards data. If you look, it's like Standard and Brawler way up here, and then pretty far down at the bottom, you have like Alchemy and Timeless and Explorer that are just kind of bouncing along. I don't know. Let me know. I'm actually thinking I might try Alchemy now. Maybe Alchemy is the solution to all of this. That would also mean people would have to be okay with watching Alchemy videos, which I think that's probably a deal breaker for most people. So I don't know if this would actually work in practice, but you are right that Alchemy does seem designed to solve a lot of the issues with
You have to play Alchemy in secrecy on your free time, Seth.
Yes. No, we don't talk about that.
In public, you play Standard, but at home, you're like, oh, thank God I can play Alchemy.
Yes, I'm
no Monstrous Rage.
Oh, no, I might actually do that. I'm gonna play some Alchemy once we're done with this.
I actually want to try it because I a lot of it is just people memeing on it, us included. Like we haven't actually played Alchemy in so long, but we just have this impression that
or something.
It sucks, right? But it adds new cards, it balances, and it rotates in 2 years. That's like literally every complaint you have about Standard.
That is actually true. That is actually true. That's a good point. That is a good fish mail. Well done, fish mailer.
All right. So if you have more questions in the future, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 531 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have an amazing week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.